Greetings! My name is Lindsay Morgan, and I am the Academic Completion Specialist for the Business Division at Chattanooga State. And today we're going to talk about completing your degree at Chattanooga State. So let's begin our presentation by talking about the team. So your team of support is set up with success coaches, instructors, faculty advisors, student services, completion specialists, and the most important member of the team, of course, is you. Because without you, we can't get you graduated, completed, and into your career field. So on this particular slide, we're going to talk about the role of academic completion specialist. And our role is to assist students in outlining their academic goals. So we make sure that the major you choose lines up with your interests so that you're just not pursuing something that you're not going to enjoy. The second thing we do is we refer students to campus resources as needed, and normally, that's if you're struggling in a subject or two. We refer you to the reading, the writing, or the math center, or even just a personal tutor, because there are some of those on campus as well. The third thing we do is we consult students about their academic standing, and your academic standing is really important because you'll need to be in good standing in order to graduate. That doesn't mean that if you ever get into a probationary status or suspension status, you can't come back. That just means that we have to work a little bit harder each semester to get you where you need to be. The last three are kind of intertwined. The first of the three is the implementation of intervention for early alerts. And an early alert is normally an alert that your faculty will send to us that says, hey, my student's not coming to class, they're not doing their work, they're not participating. And so when that happens, we bring you in and we counsel you on various success strategies for time management and getting tutoring and whatever else needs to happen. And then we normally suggest you go back to your instructor just to have a conversation about what you need to catch up on. And then the last part is we support faculty advisors, and we also support students through advising. And so that's if your faculty advisor has a question that they're not sure about, then they'll normally contact the completion specialist, and we'll get you situated to make sure that you're on the right path for graduation. So next slide is going to talk about the benchmarks to completion. And in order to understand the benchmarks to completion, you have to understand the type of degree you're pursuing. So the first part of the benchmarks to completion talks about the Associate of Arts or Associate of Science degree. And those degrees are sought by transfer students. Transfer students are going to be the students that plan to transition to UTC or MTSU or ETSU once they finish Chattanooga State. And those students normally have 41 to 42 hours of general education courses to complete. And when we say general education courses, that's your English, your math, your history, your science, your humanities, your speech. Those are courses that are required as general education to graduate with that major. Normally, those students also have about 18 to 19 hours of elective credit, and normally the elective credit will be classes that you do specifically for your major. So you have to be mindful of your elective credit and make sure you're not taking things that you don't need. Because you would hate to get to your university and find out that that class that you took because you thought it was really cool, like underwater basket weaving, doesn't count for anything, okay? The second part of the benchmark to completion is for a student that is pursuing an Associate of Applied Science degree. And those are the students that don't normally plan to transfer to university. Or if they plan to transfer, they don't plan to transfer right away. They plan to go to the workforce first. And so given that information, those students have to do about 18 to 19 hours of general education courses to complete. And if you look at the difference, if you look at the Associate of Arts / Science students, their general education courses are a whole lot more than an Associate of Applied Science students. And the reason that is because the non-transfer student is planning to go straight into the workforce. So their curriculum is more practicum based. It is very much so to prepare them to transition once they graduate into a job. So their elective credit, unlike the transfer student, is going to be packed full of specific classes that are based on the career that they're planning to pursue. Okay? If you have questions about this benchmark to completion or anything that I go over today, just let me know. You're more than welcome to contact me, and we'll get a little further into it. And we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so on this slide, we're going to talk about setting goals. And setting goals are going to be essential for you to graduate. The reason I say it's essential for you to graduate is because I have some students that have been at Chattanooga State for 10 plus years and have taken all kinds of amazing fun classes and still cannot graduate because they didn't take classes that they needed. So it's going to be imperative that you come up with a graduation goal for yourself. You need to figure out if you want to graduate in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. Normally, the 4 and 5 year students are students that are attending part-time, whereas the 2 and 3 year students are normally attending full-time. And a full-time student is going to do 12 hours every semester and maybe 2 classes every summer, or is going to do 15 hours every semester and take summers off. So you just need to be mindful of which one you feel like you can handle. The second thing is you need to set a GPA goal for yourself. GPAs are essential for students, especially those that plan to transfer to universities, because you want to make sure you have the best GPA out there so that you can qualify for scholarships. Because when I tell you that your university is going to be expensive, it normally is 2 to 3 times the price of what would be paid at Chattanooga State. So you want to be mindful that your GPA is at minimum a 2.75 or above. And normally you're really wanting to shoot for above, because the higher the GPA, the more likely you are to get scholarships. The higher the GPA, the more likely those scholarships will pay a lot more of your tuition. Okay? So thinking about that, make sure you set a GPA goal for yourself along with your graduation goal. And the last thing is to set an academic goal for yourself. You need to really concentrate on time management, organizational skills, and make sure you're making SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So if my goal is to be an accountant, then I need to set a graduation goal, which would be measurable, of 2 to 3 years as far as my associate's degree. Once I achieve my associate's degree, then I need to be realistic in picking the university that I plan to attend to make sure that I can financially afford it, or that my financial aid package is good enough so that I don't have to carry a burden of debt as I transition from my community college to my university. And then I also have to set a graduation goal when I get to the university so that when I graduate in a timely fashion and I don't just spend several years at the university trying to achieve my accounting goal. Now, thinking of SMART goals, make sure your goals are realistic. A lot of people want to make a lot of money, and a lot of money can be a good thing and it can also be a bad thing. It just varies. But if you are set out, or your goal is to make a lot of money, that's like what you're setting out to do, make sure you at least love the thing you're going to do. If you don't love your career, it's going to be hard to get up every morning and do it. So just be mindful of that. All right, we're going to move forward to our next slide, which is the GPA goals. In order to have a great GPA, you got to go to class. If you don't go to class, you're probably missing out on all kinds of assignments. And a lot of teachers put a lot of points on attendance. So attendance is essential. Go to class. If you want a good GPA, make sure you are participating in class. Make sure you keep a grade log for yourself. You are responsible for knowing what you're making in your classes, especially if your instructor does not post midterm grades, because that way you have an idea at all times of what you're making in those classes, because you're turning in the assignments and you see that you're making A's or B's or C's, okay? Make sure when you turn in the assignment, you turn it in the way the instructor wants it. If the instructor says to turn in an assignment to the Dropbox, don't turn it into the email, put it in the Dropbox, because you could have done the assignment, you could have done it in a timely fashion, but you put it in the wrong place. If you put it in the wrong place, it's very likely that you won't get credit for it, okay? And then get help when you need it. Utilize your resources. There are tutors on campus. There are really pleasant instructors that are so willing to talk with students and make sure that you understand the content that you're learning. Talk to your peers. Talk to your advisor and your completion specialist. Don't be that one student that gets left behind because you're afraid. In college, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is to advocate. So just be mindful of that. All right, we're going to move forward from our GPA goals to using Tiger Tracks. Okay, so at this point in the presentation, I need you to open your Tiger Tracks, which means you need to log into your Tiger Web, scroll down to your quick links, and select Tiger Tracks, which is the red button on the right-hand side. And when you click on the Tiger Tracks red button, it's going to open up a new page, and you're going to need to put in your Tiger Web username and password to log into Tiger Tracks. Now, as soon as Tiger Tracks opens for you, and some of you may not have it open yet, but don't worry, we're going to keep going, and I'm going to give this PowerPoint to your instructor so that they can work you through this, okay? There are some important facts that you need to know that are in Tiger Tracks. So once you open your Tiger Tracks, it looks like this screenshot at the top of your screen, okay? So when you're opening it, always check to make sure your degree, your major, and concentration are correct in the system. So if you know that you plan to transfer to a university, your degree needs to say that you are an Associate of Science or an Associate of Arts student. If it does not say that, then you need to meet with your completion specialist to talk about changing your major. If you know that you want to go straight into the workforce and you aren't really going to be transferring to any university anytime soon, then you need to make sure that your degree says you're an Associate of Applied Science student, because we want to make sure that you are in the correct degree moving forward, as this is your first semester, okay? As we move on, your advisor's contact information was also in that block where your degree is. You need to make sure that you go to the Chattanooga State Directory, and I've got the link up here. Go to the Chattanooga State Directory and find your advisor by their last name using the search box. Once you find your advisor, make sure you write down their name, their office number, the phone number, and the email address, because you're going to need to see them by the end of October in order to register for your classes in November. Okay, we're going to move forward. And what classes do you have left to take? Okay, so when we were looking at the first screen, which showed your degree, your academic standing, your GPA, and your academic advisor, on that same screen, if you look further down, you'll see there are some classes that are marked still needed. If a class is marked still needed, that means that you still need to take that class. So I would suggest at this point or sometime after the presentation that you look at that still needed list and just count it. You know, there might be 2 classes, there might be 3 classes, there may be 4 classes. Count those classes up, because you're going to need them for the assignment that you're going to turn in for this class. All right, moving forward. Okay, so also on that same screen, there are some tabs at the top. Your educational plan should be under the tab that says Plans, okay? And once you click that tab, your educational plan should open up and you should see a Spring 2020 educational plan. Now, if there is not a Spring 2020 plan on your Plans tab, that means that you need to set up an appointment before this class ends, as far as maybe not today, but this week, to meet with your academic advisor. That way, you can finish up the assignment that's due, which is your Tiger Track audit for this class, okay? Remember, so you need the Spring 2020 educational plan to turn in for your college success class. All right, so the last few pieces of this presentation, we're going to talk about finances and academics, and then we're going to talk about registration. So when we're looking at finances and academics, there are 2 things that you need to look at. You need to look at your satisfactory academic progress, which is a financial aid term, and you need to look at your academic standing, which is an academic term. And if you look at the chart on the screen, you'll see that the satisfactory academic progress, or SAP, is directly related to your financial aid. It has 3 standards. It has a GPA standard, a completion rate standard, and a time limitation standard. Students who do not meet satisfactory academic progress with financial aid have to appeal in order to continue to get financial aid. And if you find yourself in that place, you will appeal through the financial aid section of your Tiger Web. Now, the one thing about Tiger Tracks is you'll never see your SAP status on Tiger Tracks because Tiger Tracks is not connected to financial aid, if that makes sense, okay? The only thing you'll see on your Tiger Tracks is your academic standing, which again is at the top in the right-hand side. So your academic standing is not directly related to your financial aid, but could affect your financial aid. It has one standard, which is the GPA requirement. And if you have to appeal your academic standing, which normally when you appeal, that means you are on academic suspension, you have to appeal through Doug Bird. So the academic standing, again, is the only thing you'll see in Tiger Tracks. You will not see your financial aid standing there. And if we go to the next slide, it kind of explains the satisfactory academic progress standing. You're going to have a presentation by Dale Grisso if you haven't already had it for this class, and he's going to go into it more in depth. But there are two things that are really essential that I'm going to talk about, which are the completion rate, which means the hours that you attempt to pass versus the hours you pass. You must have a 67% or higher completion rate in order to get financial aid. So in order to figure out what your completion rate is, you have to look at the credit hours you've earned, which is credit hours passed, versus the attempted hours, which are the classes that you have drawn or you didn't pass, okay? And that'll give you your completion rate. So you may want to look at that each semester, just do the math yourself to make sure that you're meeting those requirements. There's also a time limitation for satisfactory academic progress. So by federal standards at Chattanooga State, if you have 90 credit hours, then that means ideally you will have finished an associate's degree. Now, if you have 90 credit hours and you have not finished an associate's degree, it is very likely that you will be put into a status where you will have to appeal your financial aid. So you need to be mindful of the attempted hours versus past hours to make sure that you are still lining up with what is required by federal guidelines, okay? All right, we're going to move forward into our next slide, and that's the advising slide. So we're coming to a close, so I'm super pumped about this. So the advising slide, you need to meet with your advisor before registration opens, and registration opens the first week of November 2019. So we can talk about what happens when you procrastinate, which you can see on the slide. You know, classes fill up. You don't get the classes that fit your schedule. You don't get the instructors you want. You may not be able to take the classes you need. So those are really, really essential because students will wait and they'll try and register in January and they will have horrible schedules, and that's not what we want you to do. We want you to register in November so that you can get the best schedule you need. But there are 3 key things that we need you to do to prepare for your advising appointment. So first off, in preparing for your advising appointment and preparing for registration, you need to meet with your faculty advisor or your academic completion specialist, whichever you're assigned to map out your educational plan and get your PIN number. Now, if you meet with your advisor earlier than October, the latter part of October, you may not get a PIN number, but you can get an educational plan. The second thing is pay attention to when registration opens, because registration for you may not be the first week, it may be the second or the third week of November, but it's going to be in November. So you need to pay attention to when registration opens specifically for you, okay? And then the third thing is you need to schedule a date on your calendar of when you'll register for your classes. And to be quite honest, the earlier you register, the better off you are. So just be mindful of that as well. Okay, we're going to move forward. And we're going to talk about changing your major, because after this presentation, after you've looked at, what your degree is, if you're a transfer student or a non-transfer student, or maybe you're in some classes this semester and you're feeling like, you know what, this major that I've chosen is not quite fitting me, and I think I want to talk to somebody about changing it. Well, there are 3 steps to changing your major. The first step is you go see your academic advisor or your completion specialist. When you go to that meeting, you complete the second step, which is you complete the top section of a change of major form. Now, if your major is not in the same area that your current major is, your new major, if it's not in the same area that your current major is, then you will be sent to another division and you will meet with that division's completion specialist to complete that change of major form. So in changing your major, you may not stay in the same division. Like if you're a business student and you're like, you know what, business isn't for me, I think I want to do exercise science, then we're going to send you to the social behavioral science department and you're going to meet with their completion specialist, and he or she will get you situated. Okay, so just be mindful that change of major is an option. You just need to make sure you get that stuff done early so that when you register for your classes, you register for the classes in your new major and not your old major. Okay, we're going to move forward. Okay, so important dates. There are some very important dates coming up that you need to be mindful of. Okay, October the 14th and the 15th is fall break. There are no classes. You will not have to report to campus. Please enjoy those days. That is going to be the first of 2 breaks you have this semester, and you're going to need to take advantage of it, because when you get back from fall break, you're going to hit the ground running doing whatever is necessary to get caught up in your classes so that you're not behind by the time finals happens. The second date is November the 1st. Is the last day to drop a class with a W. Now, if you're a Tennessee Promise, Hope, Tennessee Reconnect student and you're thinking about a class that you want to drop, just be mindful that sometimes when you drop a class and you have a scholarship, you can actually lose your scholarship. So before you drop anything, make sure you talk to financial aid to verify that that is okay to do, okay? And financial aid is the first floor of the student center, okay? The third thing is, on November the 4th, registration begins for the spring and summer semester. So you can actually register for spring and summer classes at the same time. Ideally, we would have you register for your spring classes first, and then your summer classes after that if you're going to take classes in the summer. The fourth date is Thanksgiving break. There are no classes November the 28th and 29th. The campus will be closed. Please enjoy your break, because after your break, you've got about a week maybe to just kind of get everything closed out with all your classes before the last day of classes. And the last day of classes is going to be December the 6th, because your finals are going to start on December the 9th. Once your finals start, as far as your faculty being in their offices and having office hours, once your finals are over, faculty leave the campus for break, and so they're not going to be here until January. So you may want to be mindful and make sure you do all your appointments with your faculty before they leave.